I got my second ride done on Shooter. Stick around if you want to see all that I got accomplished in just 2 rides. Alright, welcome back to Becky Emo Horse Training, and I just got done practicing backing up in hand on Shooter. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the description box. It's just a little 2.5-minute video of me backing him up using the bit. So I go ahead to mount him from the lick tub like I have been, and he decided to overreact to something that I did. Can't tell you now what it was, but you know, it just goes to show you that they're still horses, and no matter how good they are and how broke they get, they're still a horse, and we should not get complacent around them. And I'm here by myself. I'm using my Pivo to record today, and I just usually let JD know that I'm going to be doing another ride on a colt, and he kind of just, he's in the vicinity. He's kind of on call if I need help. But I go through all of the same exact steps that we did in that first ride, and look, he's kind of wanting to step off a little bit right there. And we need to address that right now. Do not get in a hurry. And I'm going to use this opportunity to back him up from above him by the bit to get him back in the position that I need him in over the lick tub, where I need to practice stepping in the stirrup and laying over the saddle. Now we have a nice foot cocked. We got some licking and chewing. He's got a long, low head set. You know, he's not in his normal shooter pose where his head's up in the air and his ears are back and he's on alert. If you guys have been following for any length of time, you guys kind of know at this point what Shooter does when he's not okay with a situation. So I do a lot of taking the lick tub back and forth. I don't want him to be afraid of it, so I do move it around a lot. It makes a lot of noise. Again, I make absolutely certain that they're good to be mounted and dismounted from both sides. I never know what situation I may get myself into, or a potential rider down the road, limitations that they may have. I've had a broken ankle before, or I've had a broken foot, and could only mount from the right side for about 6 weeks before I was able to go back to mounting on the other side. We have a nice cocked foot again. He's really relaxed with the whole deal, and this is kind of how we want them. We want them to be kind of bored with it, but just standing there and waiting on call and waiting for what we're going to ask them to do next. We want them to get to where it's just another day to them. And you know, after we get done with today's ride, I'm going to have mounted and dismounted him 6 times from both sides in the first 2 rides. And I think we're missing that in a lot of first ride horses. I can remember just, you know, 8-9 years ago, I was not mounting and dismounting horses this much. I was kind of sneaking up there, getting up on them and kind of going. And now I like the way I do it much better. I deliberately drag my foot across their butt so they feel all of that. I deliberately pet and rub all over them. You know, there was a time where I couldn't walk underneath horses, and I've said this before in some of my videos. I've gotten up on and rode horses that I couldn't walk underneath their neck. It would spook them. And so I kind of like the new way I do things and how I get them pretty gentle and pretty broke to all the different little things that I'm going to do to them when I'm up there. We got a nice little lick and chew while I mounted and dismounted right there just now. Flies are bothering him a little bit. Sometimes these days, you know, there's just nothing I can do. There's no industrial strength fly spray I can do to help them out. I can saturate them and it just doesn't make a difference. So I try to get these rides over kind of as fast as I can and get them all covered back up in their fly gear and put away and try to make it as least miserable for them as I possibly can. So I'm going to start, once I decide to stay up there, I'm going to start by bending his head around both directions just like I did in the first ride. I do like to make sure that they are willing to give their head back and forth both directions. Again, remember, if we can't bend their head around at a standstill, we're sure not going to get them to bend their head around at a walk or at a trot or at a lope or when they're running off with us. So we always want to check and double check all of our safety buttons on these horses to give ourselves the best chance in case of an accident. Now, if you followed on ride 1, it took a little bit to get him started and not nearly as much as other horses, but Shooter has a lot of forward, and had I have thought it was going to be a problem, I would have had JD here helping me get him to go forward. It's not unheard of JD having to help me for the first couple of rides getting horses to go forward. They look to him a lot for security on the ground, and it just helps make everything go so much more smoothly if we can get them going forward. You can't train a horse that just wants to stand there. You have to have some forward motion. Shooter has never really had a problem with forward motion. Right now, he's just trying to figure out the balance point. You know, he's not quite going to the rail. He's kind of, you know, all over the place, not really going in a straight line, trying to figure out what direction we're going. Initially, he wants to go to the gate. All of these horses learn where the gate is right away from the start. You know, that's very, very typical of every colt that I start, and especially on the really broken trained horses. They want to stop at that gate, they know how to work the gate, and they want out of the round pen and want to go do something else. So I get some forward motion, and I get him walking out pretty smoothly before I do his first emergency stop. And again, I practice those emergency stops over and over and over again throughout the entire first 20 rides, and then I'll continue to use them throughout the rest of that horse's life, that it stays with me. So we're starting to get a pretty good walk here. This guy can really walk out and kind of nod and bob his head and get a nice swing and walk, but he's trying to figure out how to negotiate going past this gate, wanting to stop there. And as soon as he starts really walking out nice, then I'll practice bending him around and changing directions. Right now, I'm mostly just trying to keep him in between my hands and my legs, keep him going straight, trying to help him with my hips a little bit, sitting back at the point of balance that he really likes me. If I get forward on him, he's just going to stop on me. I talked a lot about balance in my last first ride video, and how, you know, when horses are not balanced, they either slow down, they speed up, or they buck. And I've experienced all of that when I've thrown a horse off of balance. And looking back, you know, hindsight's 20/20. You can tell the exact moment that you threw the horse off of balance when they bucked. And I had a lot of horses that stopped with me when I got too far forward on them. And so I have found that a lot of them really like me sitting back to help drive them forward, and just getting them started like this, that's kind of where they've been able to find their balance point, and Shooter is no exception. So I'm just trying to keep him on the rail here. There's a point here, if I get him too close to the rail, the pivot will lose me, so I can't get too sucked up to that rail. But that is where he's going to find his balance point. He's been working in this round pen for the last several months, so he's accustomed to it. He knows spatially how close he can get to it. You know, that's another problem I think we run into in those, you know, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day colt starting challenges. You have a horse that's never worked on a circle before. You have a horse that's never, you know, worked on a 50-foot circle or a 60-foot circle, and they don't have any balance, and you come in and then you expect them to go around, and then you have these wrecks. Or I hear of cowboys that have wrecks when the horse slams their leg into the side of the rail, and often it's because the horse hasn't learned spatially where their balance point is going around the round pen. And I see it in lots of different horses. They're not capable of walk trotting or loping this size of a circle yet. Now I immediately take a trot out of that last bend with him, and gonna go ahead and use it and get him going pretty good. I'm gonna do emergency stop here. Always pull that rein back to my leg, reach back, pet him on his butt, pet him on his head, make sure he down regulates, change directions. So we accomplish a lot in that one maneuver. We're getting them soft in the face, we're disengaging the hind end, we're touching them all over, we're down regulating them. All of these super points to hit with them in the very beginning, because that's how we're going to be able to calm our horse down and remind them that, hey, it's okay, just follow my direction, follow my lead. I'm here to help you. I'm gonna help you get through this. When you're upset, it's all gonna be okay. So that's why I practice this. And in the case of an emergency, I've got the tool in my toolbox to help this horse get through this. Or in the event that he spooks at something, you know, I can use that to my advantage. And so you just continually add speed, and the more speed you add, you know, obviously the longer it takes for them to react, and, you know, longer it takes for us to react and put all the pieces together. That's why we start off at a walk, doing it multiple times at a walk to make sure we've practiced it, and then move up to a trot so that, you know, when the time may come and we have to use it at a faster speed, if we've got pieces or parts of the puzzle, we have a lot better chance than if we're just grabbing at rein. Do you guys understand? Does that make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and ask for a lope here. As I speed him up, we take a right lead. Really nice. He breaks down to a trot. I ask him to pick it up again, and he picks up the wrong lead. Let me show you again in slow motion. He's leading with his front left foot there, okay? Now, I'm not going to get after him too bad here. I'm just going to let him break down because I appreciate that he took the lope for me, but we took the wrong lead. And unfortunately, the pivot loses us for a moment, and I break him down to a trot, and I just go ahead and bend him around. That's another beauty of using this emergency stop, is anytime they're just not going the direction you want them to go, or you miss a lead, you can always use that to break them down and start over again, and it's no big deal because you've practiced it so much they know that it's okay, it's no big deal. So we get the left lead going this direction. He really likes to move out. He's a really good mover. He follows the rail, stays really balanced, and I go ahead and bend him around into emergency stop. Let me show you again what this looks like in slow-mo. I go to both reins in one hand, and I'm going to slide my left hand down that inside rein to bend it around and bring it back to my thigh. And now that I've practiced this so much at a walk and a trot, it comes pretty easy to do at the lope. And by going up his neck and he feels me touching his neck, he's already thinking about stopping. That's the pre-cue. I'm not just snatching at this horse's face. I want to emphasize that to you guys. At no point am I just snatching at his face. He's getting a pre-cue all the time when I'm doing this. And so that way, when we do have a potential wreck and you are just grabbing and pulling around, we might have to use that by just pulling a rein, but we already know that our horse is at least soft already by doing it that way. Now, we get a crossfire again this direction, so I'm going to go ahead and bend him around and stop and change directions and work back the other direction before I come back and work on that right lead again. So do another one, and then I'm going to pick up my right lead again. I take off, and this time we've got it. And I'm going to leave him alone and let him just lope on his right lead. He got a little bit worried, he got a little bit nervous before, and he picked up the wrong lead. I didn't make a big deal about it. I just bent him around. It was just same old for him. We get several laps here, and I'm going to go ahead and quit on that. I tell him easy. He breaks down to a trot, and he's already looking for the stop. Now look at how many times that I've practiced this emergency stop, that when I say easy and I start to go up his neck and break him down for that emergency stop and bend his head around, he's already stopped. Isn't that cool? And this is a horse that I have now done this with, you know, how many times in 2 rides. Look at how much you can get accomplished in just 2 rides on a horse. Have them looking for stop, changing directions, picking up correct lead both directions, stopping and backing up, turns on the forehand. You know, this isn't just the old cowboy way anymore of getting on in a halter and lead rope and sitting there and waiting for the horse to move. We're riding and guiding now stride for stride. We're down regulating our horse. We're working at all 3 gaits, and we're teaching him balance. We're teaching him how to carry us. Right here, I'm going to go ahead and work on turns on the forehand. All I'm doing is lifting my inside rein and kicking his hip over. When I don't have somebody here to help me, I just use the rail to do it. And I lift my inside rein, the one that's closest to the rail. It's going to be the right rein, and I'm going to put that leg back on him towards his hip and just ask him to kick that hip over. and there, and I release and pet and rub on him and make him keep going the same direction. At no point do I turn him back to come the other way, because I don't want to lose the power of that hind end in a roll away. I don't want him to get in the habit of doing a turn on the forehand to turn into the rail. And I've talked about this before in other videos where I talked about the importance of the turn on the forehand and being able to disengage that hind end. So I'm going to go ahead and quit with him on that. I'm still going to turn him back the other direction and make him keep going the other way. I do not want him to turn back and go to the right. And I'll walk across the round pen with him before I go and ask him to do it the other way again. And this gives him a nice little break. I'm not picking at him. I'm not pulling on his face at all. I'm not poking him with my legs. We're just walking across the round pen to the other side. This is a nice little game over moment. And then I put him back on the rail, and I'm going to ask for turn on the forehand going the other direction. This particular maneuver is one of the most important maneuvers that I teach. That's why I teach it from ride 1. I'm going to pick up that inside rein, which is my left rein, put my left leg into him and kick that hip over. Pet and rub on him, and then walk off again. You have to be sure to release the pressure consistently every time to teach them that's what you're asking for. Here again, I'll do it again. Lift that inside rein, kick that hip over with the left leg, and get perpendicular to that rail. And that's all I'm asking for. And you see the release as soon as he steps out. We get a nice lick and chew there, and then we walk off again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask him for this one more time, but I want to address something that happened earlier in the ride when loping to the right. He gave me a tiny little crow hop, and I'm going to share a clip of it right here. And now it was just a tiny little hop as I asked him for the right lead, and it was just a tiny bit of resistance and a little bit of sulkiness, and you know, I'm going to let it slide for right now. A lot of horses will get resistance in the round pen because they want to lack forward motion generally because it's such a small space. I will address it if it continues to be a problem. Here you can see that hind end comes up slightly. I hardly feel it because I'm in my Bonny Foreman balanced ride saddle, and it sets me kind of in the middle of that teeter-totter, and so I don't feel it as much. But I do acknowledge that it was there, and I will continue to feel for it as I continue to ride him and try to diagnose what it's being caused from. But I don't want to completely overlook that and let you guys know that I did see that and I did feel that during the ride. So now I'm back to the middle of the round pen, and I'm going to go ahead and ask him for the backup. And you know, it's kind of ugly again. He doesn't have somebody on the ground helping him. And, of course, he has a little bit of resistance because Shooter always kind of resists everything. You kind of got to make it his idea. And I probably ask him for the backup too many times. I will tell you guys that. I probably should have quit after just a couple of times of asking him for it. And instead, I kind of overdo it. And I think I asked him for it about 4 times. And all I'm doing is holding until I feel him soften just a little bit, you know, start to give. And then I asked him, I got a little greedy. I asked him for too many steps there. You know, it's just something that, you know, you can't cram for the final if you didn't do the work beforehand. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I didn't do a very good job on the groundwork with this. So this is something that's just going to come with time, and it's going to get better as I work on it more on the ground, and with a little bit more work on his back and being really consistent every time and release pressure as soon as he gives a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and quit with that now, and I'm going to head over to the gate on the round pen where I have my rope hanging, and I'm going to take my rope off and work on the rope again. I find the more that I can make myself work with that rope, the better off they and I will be, as I've told you before. I'm not super confident with my rope handling and working them off a colt. I've just had too many accidents, so if I get it out of the way in the first few rides and I get the colts really good and accepting of it and desensitized to it, the better off I'll be. So the cool thing about grabbing my rope off the rail like that is they start to get used to you reaching off of them and grabbing stuff. You know, it's a precursor to down the line when you need to grab a sweatshirt or a jacket off the rail, or put your sweatshirt or jacket up on the rail after you're done using it, you know, from their back, and it gets them used to that reaching feeling. And right now I'm just kind of letting him walk around and deal with me fumbling through this rope. No big deal. You know, you don't have to be a professional roper to handle the rope. They just have to get used to you fumbling with something on their back. That's all it amounts to, is them understanding that it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with whatever you're doing up there. It's just another job. They can just ignore it. That's what we're looking for them to do, and just casually walk around. If he was one that was really kind of grabbing his butt and scooting and kind of wanting to run off, I would hold my inside rein really tight, like my left one really tight, and bend him in a circle, and then keep on working that rope. And as soon as he stood still, I would quit. That's usually how I release everything and quit on these horses, is when they're standing still, I release the pressure. And so by releasing the pressure, I would quit swinging that rope. But he's been pretty good about the whole deal. He really doesn't care. He just kind of doesn't have any direction right now, and that's fine. That's why we're doing it in the round pen. But he just needs to know that it has nothing to do with him. It has to do with me kind of playing around with it and getting him used to it, just more desensitizing, getting used to the zinging and the zooming of the rope around him, seeing that rope be thrown out in front of him. You know, that's all this is about. And also, I want him to get used to that this is the end of his ride too. When the rope comes out, he knows, oh, this is the end of my ride. This is when she kind of stops picking at me. I really don't have to do anything. He starts to have some relief at the end of his day, because he knows that it's over with at this point. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the rope work here and put the rope back on the gate handle. And, you know, part of the reason for teaching him to do this is just teaching him to get up to the rail, allowing me to reach off of him and set something down. You know, in the future, you always need to grab a piece of equipment, put a jacket up there. You need them to get close to the rail for something or another. Hand somebody your cell phone, whatever it may be. You want them to be comfortable with going up to that rail. And I'm going to go ahead and dismount using the lick tub. Now, because I didn't do my normal dismount like I've done in the past, where I've roped the barrel and drug it over to us for me to dismount, these horses aren't understanding that they have to get back up to that barrel for me to get off of them. And so it takes a little bit longer than usual for him to get in position for me to dismount. But once he's got it figured out, he stands there pretty good for me to go ahead and get off of him. It's just a matter of getting up to it. You know, it takes Shooter just a little bit longer to do everything. So I just have to have a little bit more patience with him and show him what I'm asking him and wait on his terms. And I go ahead and dismount him on his right side. I pedal in my stirrups so he knows to stand up and balance himself, so I can step off right here and call it a day. And I think that was a super second ride, a great session. I appreciate you guys watching again. I look forward to the rest of our rides and sharing them with you guys and letting you know how everything's going. Stay tuned. I've got another video coming out soon as we continue to get all of our rides done. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.